Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The champagne flute snapped in my hand, a sharp bite of crystal slicing into my palm, but the sting was nothing compared to the sight of my husband's flushed neck bared to him. Blood welled in the lifeline of my hand, dripping onto the pristine marble floor of the Grand Duke's ballroom, yet I couldn't look away. Across the sea of swirling silks and tuxedos, under the oppressive glint of the chandeliers, they stood like a painting of inevitable tragedy. Lysander, my beautiful, delicate Omega husband, was laughing, a sound like wind chimes that used to belong only to me, and leaning into the gravitational pull of Duke Valerius blindly. And Valerius? The alpha who held the nation's economy in one hand and its military in the other? He was looking right at me. Not at the Omega preening for his attention, but at me, the unremarkable Beta architect standing in the shadows. His gaze was heavy, predatory, and suffocating. It was the look of a wolf who had already decided which sheep he would slaughter first. I turned away, shoving my bleeding hand into my pocket. I was a man of logic, of blueprints, and structural integrity. I knew when a foundation was cracking. I knew when a building was condemned. I knew my marriage was over long before the demolition began. In this world, biology is destiny. Alphas rule, omegas are cherished, and betas like me? We are the mortar between the bricks. We are necessary, sturdy, and entirely forgettable. I was content with that. My name is Julian. I am a lead architect for the capital's restoration projects. I am 30 years old, possessing average height, average brown hair, and a scent that is barely perceptible, like dry paper and rain. I had achieved the impossible by marrying Lysander. He was a rare floral omega, sought after by heirs and politicians. When he chose me 3 years ago, citing a desire for a peaceful life away from alpha aggression, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. But peace, it seems, is boring. The envy began slowly. It wasn't just jealousy, it was a corrosive acid in my gut. It started when Valerius returned from the border wars. Valerius Kalin, the prime alpha. He was everything I wasn't, 6'4", silver-haired, radiating a pheromone profile of ozone, cedar, and crushed spices that could force lesser men to their knees without a word spoken. Lysander changed the moment Valerius returned to high society. The peaceful life I provided became stifling. My quiet affection became bland. I retreated to the terrace, the night air cooling the sweat on my brow. My hand throbbed. I needed a bandage, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. Not yet. You're bleeding. The voice was a low rumble, vibrating in the floorboards beneath my feet. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The air pressure dropped, the oxygen suddenly replaced by the scent of a brewing storm. I turned, clutching my handkerchief to my palm. Valerius stood there. He was massive, his broad shoulders stretching the fabric of a suit that cost more than my annual salary. His eyes were the color of steel, sharp and unreadable. Your Grace, I said, bowing slightly. The ingrained reflex of a beta facing a prime. It's nothing. A clumsy mistake. You clench your fists when you are angry, Valerius observed, stepping closer. He invaded my personal space, sucking the air out of my lungs. You squeezed the glass until it broke. What? I'm not angry. I lied, my voice steady despite the trembling in my knees. Just tired. Valerius tilted his head. He looked at me with an intensity that made me want to run. Lysander is looking for you. He's currently holding court near the chocolate fountain. He mentioned he forgot his coat. The dismissal was subtle but clear. Asterisk, go tend to your wife. Go be the servant you are. Asterisk, thank you, Your Grace. I murmured, stepping around him. As I passed, his hand shot out, gripping my uninjured wrist. His skin was scorching hot. The contact sent a jolt of electricity up my arm that nearly made me gasp. You deserve better than a jagged cut, Julian, he said softly, his thumb brushing the pulse point of my wrist. I pulled away, terrified by the sudden racing of my heart. Excuse me. I fled. I fled because I was a coward. I fled because, deep down, I knew the envy wasn't just about Lysander choosing him. It was the crushing realization that Valerius was the sun, and I was just a moth that would burn if I got too close. The weeks that followed were a slow torture. Lysander grew distant, spending late nights at charity galas that I knew Valerius attended. The scent of ozone and cedar began to cling to my husband's clothes, faint, but undeniable. I buried myself in work. Paradoxically, my firm had just landed the contract of the century, renovating the Kalen estate, Duke Valerius's ancestral home. It was a trap. I knew it was a trap, but I couldn't refuse the commission. It would bankrupt my firm. I stood in the center of the Duke's private library, sketching plans for the new shelving units. The room was magnificent, dark wood and leather, a testament to power. "I want the skylight expanded," Valerius said. I jumped. I hadn't heard him enter. He moved with the silent grace of a predator. He was wearing casual clothes today, a black turtleneck that emphasized the thick muscles of his neck and chest. "Expanded, Your Grace?" I kept my eyes on my sketchbook. "Structurally, the beams might not support. You'll find a way. You always do. You're brilliant, Julian." The compliment hit me like a physical blow. Lysander hadn't called me brilliant in 2 years. He called me reliable. "I will do my best," I said stiffly. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. It was a command. My beta physiology resisted better than an omega's would, but the sheer weight of his will forced my chin up. Valerius was standing inches from me. He reached out, taking the pencil from my hand and setting it on the table. "Why do you stay with him?" Valerius asked. My breath hitched. "He is my husband. I love him." "Do you?" Valerius challenged, his eyes searching mine. "Or do you love the idea of him? Do you love the validation that a beautiful omega chose a plain beta? You cling to him like a shield, Julian. But shields get heavy." "You have no right," I whispered, anger finally sparking in my chest. "You, who have everything. You sit in your high tower and take whatever you want. You're trying to take him from me just because you can." Valerius laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "Is that what you think? That I want Lysander? He smells like you," I accused, my voice cracking. "When he comes home, he smells like you." Valerius's expression darkened. A flash of genuine fury crossed his face, but it wasn't directed at me. "If he smells like me, it is because he throws himself into my path at every opportunity. I have never touched him. I have never invited him." "Liar," I hissed. "Why else would you endure his presence? Why else would you give me this contract? You're mocking me." Valerius took a step forward, trapping me against the heavy oak desk. He placed his hands on either side of me, boxing me in. The scent of the storm was overwhelming now, thick with aggression and something else, something sweeter. Desire. "You are the architect," Valerius growled low in his throat. "But you are blind to the design. I didn't give you this contract to get closer to your husband. I gave it to you so I could finally have you in my house, without him hovering like a parasite." I froze. The words didn't make sense. "Me? I'm a beta. And I am sick to death of omegas," Valerius spat. "Sick of the sweetness, the submission, the biological imperative that makes them fawn over me. I want a mind. I want a challenge. I want the man who looked me in the eye at the gala and hated me with enough fire to break glass." He leaned down, his lips brushing the shell of my ear. "I don't envy you, Julian. I burn for you." The revelation shattered my world more effectively than the champagne flute. I pushed him away and ran. I drove home, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I arrived, the apartment was dark, but there were suitcases in the hall. Lysander was in the living room, dressed in his finest coat. He looked beautiful and entirely cold. "You're home early," he said, checking his watch. "Where are you going?" I asked, though I knew. "I'm leaving, Julian." He sighed, as if explaining something to a child. "I can't do this anymore. The mediocrity. The stagnation. I have a chance at something real. Duke Valerius. We have a connection." I stared at him. The man I had worked double shifts for. The man I had comforted through his heats, holding him while he cried, suppressing my own needs to ensure he felt safe. "He doesn't want you, Lysander," I said quietly. Lysander laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Oh, Julian. Don't be pathetic. Of course he wants me. I am a prime omega. You're just a placeholder. I needed someone safe while I waited for a real alpha to return from the war. You served your purpose." He picked up his bags. "I'm going to the Kalen estate. He's expecting me." "He's not," I said, a strange calm settling over me. "Goodbye, Julian. Try not to make a scene." He walked out the door. I stood in the silence of my empty apartment. I should have been devastated. I should have been crying. But instead, I felt lighter. The anxiety, the constant need to prove myself, the fear of loss, it all evaporated. The foundation hadn't just cracked, the building had collapsed, and I was standing in the rubble, unhurt. I poured myself a drink. I sat in my armchair and waited. I checked my watch. It would take Lysander 20 minutes to drive to the estate. 5 minutes to get past the gate, if he even got that far. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Lysander. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. Then, a different number. A private number. I answered. Julian. Valerius's voice. Did he arrive? I asked, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. He is currently screaming at my gate guards, Valerius said calmly. I gave orders that he is not to be admitted. He is claiming he is my mate. He believes it, I said. He believes biology is everything. He is a fool, Valerius said. There was a pause. I am coming to get you. No, I said. Julian, if you come here, you prove him right, I said, my voice gaining strength. You prove that I am just a pawn between alphas and omegas. If you want me, Valerius, you don't get to collect me like a trophy. Then what do you want? The alpha's voice was strained, heavy with restraint. I want to finish the library, I said. I'm a professional. I'll see you on Monday at 8 a.m. And Valerius. Yes. Don't touch me unless I ask you to. I hung up. The weekend was a blur of blocked calls from Lysander. He had gone to stay with his parents, spinning a narrative of my cruelty. I didn't care. Monday morning, I arrived at the Kalin estate. The guard saluted me. I walked into the library. Valerius was there, waiting. He looked exhausted, as if he hadn't slept. When he saw me, his whole body tensed, the predator checking its instincts. You came, he breathed. I have a contract to fulfill, I said, setting down my bag. I unrolled the blueprints on the desk. Now, about that skylight. If we use steel reinforcement beams here and here. I looked up. Valerius was watching me with a look of such raw, unadulterated worship that it took my breath away. He wasn't looking at a beta. He wasn't looking at an employee. He was looking at his equal. He walked around the desk, stopping a respectful distance away. He held out his hand. May I? He asked. It was the first time an alpha had ever asked for my permission. I looked at his hand, large, scarred, capable of crushing bone. Then I looked at my own, healing, scarred from the glass, but steady. I closed the distance. You may. He didn't grab me. He didn't pull. He simply laid his hand against my cheek, his thumb brushing my lower lip. The contact was electric, a circuit finally closing. I envied you too, Valerius confessed, his voice rough. I watched you with him. I watched you be patient and kind and strong. I hated him for not seeing you. I hated him for treating a diamond like it was glass. I'm not a diamond, I said, leaning into his touch despite myself. I'm just a beta. You are the only thing in this world that is real, Valerius murmured, lowering his forehead to rest against mine. And if I have to spend the rest of my life on my knees to prove that to you, I will. The envy was gone. The fear was gone. In the arms of the most powerful alpha in the nation, I realized that rank meant nothing. Power wasn't about biology. It was about choice. Lysander chose status. Valerius chose me. And for the first time in my life, I chose myself. I grabbed Valerius by his lapels and pulled him down. When our lips met, it wasn't the sweet, flowery kiss of an omega. It was hard, desperate, and tasted of storms. It was the taste of a new foundation being poured, one that would never, ever break. And that is how the quiet architect brought the Wolf King to heel. If you enjoyed seeing Julian realize his true worth, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you have taken Lysander back if he begged, or does betrayal burn the bridge forever? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then.